my sister got sick and became particularly fond of eels. In order to suppress her illness, my mother gave my sister lard mixed with pearl powder to eat every day. On the night of New Year's Eve, my mother led the village butcher into my sister's room. I thought the butcher was here to cure my sister's illness. Unexpectedly, they cut open my sister's belly and took out a huge clam pearl. When my sister went to the lake to collect clams, she accidentally got bitten on her finger by an eel and started bleeding. From then on, she developed a disease and became particularly fond of eels. Sister, you've had several days of rest. I was a little jealous of my sister. Since she was bitten by the eel, she never worked and just slept in bed every day. My mother felt sorry for her and said that she deserved to take a rest after being bitten by such a beast. My sister was relieved. But I am the one who does all the dirty and tiring work of collecting clams and pearls at home. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I couldn't help but yell at my sister, "Get up now and get to work." My sister rolled her eyes at me, pulled the quilt to cover her head, and ignored me. I'm even angrier. She and I are twins. Why should she enjoy the comfort of lying in bed while I suffer in the lake fishing for clams? Get up now. I suddenly reached out and pulled the blanket off her body. The next moment, the smell of earth hit me in the face. All I saw were eels with black faces and yellow bottoms tangled together all over the bed, and as the quilt was pulled off, they fell down one by one. I have never seen so many eels. They were of different sizes, but their bodies were like chopsticks standing up towards me. I was so scared that I didn't even dare to move. My sister looked at my frightened expression and a hint of sneer appeared on her face. Eels are so good, they are like jade, they nourish people. I wanted to be tough and ask her if she found it disgusting to sleep with such a slippery and fishy thing. But when I saw my sister kissing the eel with an intoxicated look on her face, I got goosebumps and ran out of her room in a hurry. There was a fishy, sweet and greasy smell coming from the kitchen. The smell was like an invisible hook, which hooked me into the kitchen like a dog and made me lie down beside the big pot. Lard mixed with pearl powder is steamed in a large pot. This is what my mother prepared for my sister. My mother said that if my sister ate this good meal, her symptoms would stop. But I didn't believe it. My sister has been eating eels for 7 days straight, but she still shamelessly holds the eels every moment. Why are you here instead of fishing for clams in the lake? Just when I was thinking about tasting the lard, my mother stood outside the kitchen door like a ghost with a gloomy face. Are you trying to eat it secretly? I was so scared that I trembled all over and quickly explained, "Mom, my sister is hungry and I wanted to get her something to eat." My mother's expression finally eased a little. She pointed at the pot and angrily said, "Why don't you serve the food to your sister?" I did as I was told in a hurry. In the room my sister is sleeping. I felt jealous and disgusted, so I put the plate on her quilt and said, "Eat quickly." My sister slowly poked her head out from under the quilt. When she saw the lard mixed with pearl powder, her eyes sparkled and she buried her face in the plate, chewing the food frantically. "Don't you know how to use chopsticks?" I looked down on her. "You are eating like a dog, dirty and ugly." My sister stopped chewing instantly. Her head did not move. There was still lard powder on her lips, but her dark yellow eyes stared at me sideways. I was stunned for a moment. Suddenly I felt that she ate not like a dog, but like an eel eating meat, one mouthful at a time, which was very disgusting to watch. I inexplicably began to fear my sister. At the same time, I also realized belatedly that I couldn't defend her. My mother is now very distressed about my sister. If she tells my mother about me, given her temper, she will definitely skin me alive. I forced a smile and said submissively, "Sister, I don't mean to scold you, I just tend to be straightforward." My sister's eyes rolled back in her sockets. She suddenly laughed out loud, put the lard and pearl powder on the plate in her mouth, lay on the bed and attracted the eels to eat them. I saw it with my own eyes and felt jealous in my heart. In our village, pearls can be used as currency. My mother grinds pearl powder, which is like spending money to feed my sister. Lard is even more rare. Any food will become sweet and delicious if mixed with a little bit of white fat. I can only taste the taste of lard during the Chinese New Year. But now my sister can taste the taste of lard 3 times a day. She even let such a precious food be wasted by a filthy thing like an eel. I really couldn't control the resentment in my heart, so I quietly caught a yellow eel and dug my fingers into its eyes. The eel felt pain, and its slippery body coiled around my palm like a vine, struggling violently. "Ah!" At this moment, my sister suddenly screamed in pain. "Girl, what's wrong with you?" My mother rushed in upon hearing the sound. She pushed me away, kicked me hard in the chest, and stared at me angrily. "Bitch, if you don't serve your sister well, you will die in the cesspool." Then she stepped on my body and ran to my sister in a hurry. "My dear daughter, tell me what's wrong with you? Did this bitch not give you water to drink?" My sister straightened up and pointed her index finger at the palm of my right hand like a hook. In my palm was a bloody eel with its head crushed to pieces. "The eel is your sister's treasure. How dare you pinch it? It seems you really want to die." My mother stared at me coldly and said, "Go get a kitchen knife." "Mom, I didn't mean it." I hurriedly got up from the ground, grabbed my mother's trouser legs and begged, "Mom, please forgive me. I promised to serve my sister comfortably in the future." My mother stroked my sister's hair and said calmly, "Don't wait for me to get the kitchen knife. If I do, you won't spare either of your hands." I shuddered all over. Finally, I went to the kitchen, took a knife, and cut off the middle finger and ring finger that I used to crush the eel's head. My mother has a bad temper. But she wasn't like this before. She was cruel and ruthless to my sister and me. But ever since my sister was bitten by the eel, my mother's focus has completely shifted to my sister. I really don't understand. It was me who worked hard at home, but I didn't get any good things from it. Instead, I was always beaten and tortured. Looking at the two severed fingers bleeding on the chopping board, I felt a strange emotion for the first time. If I were bitten by a yellow eel, would my mother treat me so well? At night, I tossed and turned in pain and couldn't sleep. I stood up and sneaked to the kitchen, thinking of wrapping the severed finger in the trash can with cloth. At this moment, I suddenly saw the village chief and my mother walking towards me. The village chief was carrying a large basket of things in his hands, with a smile on his face. "Your eldest daughter Amelia is the first person in our village to be bitten by an eel this year. She has the potential to produce large pearls. You must serve her well and take good care of her." My mother nodded and said, "Of course, she's the only child in my family, and I feed her everything. Well, this basket is full of fine pearls and old lard. Give them all to Amelia. Don't let her go hungry." As he spoke, the village chief took out a white pearl from the basket. This white bead is the largest bead I have ever seen. It was very big, as round as the rim of a bowl, and in the dark kitchen, it emitted a faint white glow. Was produced in the home of Evelyn, the first person to be bitten by an eel last year. The village chief held the beads in his hands, licked them greedily a few times, smacked his lips and said, "It's a pity that the beads in her house are not translucent and the light they emit is not dazzling at all. Evelyn, she is my best friend. She used to be like me. No matter spring, summer or autumn, she had to go to the lake every day to catch clams and kill eels. Evelyn and I were at the lake, chasing a black eel as thick as a child's arm. The black eel was frightened and tried desperately to drill a mud hole. Evelyn reached into the hole and tried to catch the eel, but the eel suddenly turned its head and bit Evelyn's finger with a sudden attack. The black eel's teeth were very sharp, and they bit Evelyn so hard that blood flowed out. She was so scared and terrified that she almost died of crying. But after returning home, Evelyn's mother was not angry at all. Instead, she happily took her to the village chief's house. That day, Evelyn fell ill and had to stay with the eels every day. Evelyn's mother smiled happily and fed her lard mixed with pearl powder every day. The villagers said that eating lard mixed with pearl powder could cure the disease. But Evelyn had been eating it for more than half a year, and her symptoms were not only not cured, but became more severe. On the morning of New Year's Eve, Evelyn suddenly came to me. She looked terrified and she stretched out her fingers to pinch her throat and begged me for help. She said, "Allah, please save me, please pour the feces into my mouth." Evelyn could finish her words. Her mother called for the village butcher to take her away. I couldn't help but stop him. "A butcher is a butcher, Evelyn is not a pig. Why did you ask someone to take her away?" Evelyn's mother rolled her eyes at me and said, "Evelyn's condition is getting worse and worse. It will take the butcher's evil spirit to stop it. Don't take me away." Evelyn dug her fingers into the dirt and screamed heartbreakingly, "Mom, I beg you, please let me go, I'm your only daughter." "Mom?" I didn't understand Evelyn at the time. I just think she is taking advantage of me. Her mother was so good to her. She let her lie in bed without doing any work and served her with delicious and sweet lard and pearl powder. But that night, news came that Evelyn had died suddenly due to emotional excitement. That night, another piece of news came. Evelyn's mother found a big clam. There was a big pearl in the clam, which was as round and solid as a bowl, but the water head of the pearl was not very good and it was not transparent. Evelyn is plump and has a big butt. Logically, she should be able to give birth to a bright pearl. I heard this while huddled in the firewood pile next to the stove. Through the cracks in the firewood pile, the village chief said with regret, "I just hate that Evelyn's mother was stingy and made a mistake by not putting enough lard in Evelyn's food. That's why Evelyn's pearls only grow in size but are not bright. Oh, what a pity. Evelyn produces pearls? Evelyn is a human being, how can she produce pearls like a clam? I didn't believe it in my heart, but the village chief's next words made me completely terrified. He patted my mother's shoulder and said with a serious expression, "Your daughter Amelia is a good seedling. I have a feeling that the pearl she will have in her belly will be bigger than Evelyn's. You must take good care of her." My chest began to feel tight. It was like a sharp boulder crushing my chest heavily. I finally understood. On New Year's Eve, my best friend Evelyn did not die suddenly. Instead, the butcher cut open his stomach and took out the pearls from it. The next morning, my mother threw me a big round pearl and said, "Grind it into powder quickly, but be careful not to waste it. Also, don't eat it." The pearl in front of me was extremely heavy, slightly pink in color, and exuded a fishy smell. I used a knife to grind it into powder, but I couldn't help but shed tears. This is the pearl in Evelyn's belly. This is Evelyn. After grinding it into fine powder, my mother sprinkled the powder evenly on the lard in the bowl. She also poured some chicken blood, stirred it for a while, and asked me to bring it to my sister. In the room, my sister was lying on the bed and sleeping. In the past, I would have definitely despised and ridiculed her, but now, I inexplicably feel sorry for her. Before she was bitten by the eel, my sister was very kind to me. She was always willing to do all the dirty and hard work. But later, she became ill and her personality changed, becoming vicious and mean. "Bring it here quickly." The elder sister smelled the sweet and fishy smell of the food. She poked her red head out from under the quilt, tilted her head back, opened her mouth and yelled at me, "Feed it into my mouth." I walked over to her, scooped a spoonful of the fishy, sticky food from the bowl, and put it into her mouth. My sister swallowed it directly into her throat without chewing it. The way she ate now really looked like an eel. I struggled for a long time but couldn't help but remind her, "Sister, you should eat less. You told me to eat less?" The corner of my sister's mouth turned towards her ears, and her voice was extremely sharp. "Are you jealous of me? You are jealous that I eat these rare foods every day. You also want to eat these delicacies like me, right?" She chuckled again. "It's a pity that you are not destined to be rich and you can't enjoy these delicacies. Sister, you..." I was about to explain when I heard my mother's roar, "Ella, you are greedy again. You dare to ask for food from your sister's bowl?" My mother rushed in holding a shiny kitchen knife. She grabbed my hair, pointed the sharp blade at my neck and said viciously, "I can't let you go this time." At this moment of life and death, I burst out with an unprecedented desire to survive. For the first time, I pushed my mother away with all my might and ran out the door. In a panic, I tripped over the threshold and fell to the ground. My mother threw a kitchen knife at me. The sharp blade sank into my right leg. "Ah!" I screamed in extreme pain, then my eyes went dark and I passed out. I was awakened by the pain. When I opened my eyes, I saw a large group of black-faced eels greedily and frantically drilling into the wound on my leg. My mother was sitting on a wooden stool next to me, still holding the bloody kitchen knife in her hand, and eagerly trying to cut my leg. I was so scared that I broke out in a cold sweat. Mom, you can't kill me. If I die, who will take care of my sister? Who will go to the cold lake to fish for clams? You're scared to death now?" My mother suddenly stretched out her hands and grabbed my neck. Her eyes were extremely sinister. "You asked your sister to eat less. Is it because you overheard the conversation between me and the village chief last night?" I didn't dare to admit it. I shook my head with difficulty and pain. The oxygen was squeezed out of my chest bit by bit. I felt like I was going to die at any moment. "You still dare to lie? Then forget your tongue." My mother let go of my neck. The next moment, her rough fingers were like iron pliers, grabbing and pulling my tongue out of my mouth, accompanied by a burst of sword movements. My tongue was cut out. An unprecedented pain came. Warm, sweet blood filled my mouth. My whole body twisted in pain, but only painful whimpers came out of my mouth. "Now that your tongue has been cut, you can't speak and you can keep the secret." My mother picked up the limp tongue on the ground and threw it into the pile of eels. There has been a custom in our village since ancient times. Every year, the first woman bitten by an eel in the lake is called a clam girl. She can produce huge pearls. During this period, the clam girl must be constantly fed with lard mixed with pearl powder to provide nutrition for the pearls in her belly. At the end of the year, invite the butcher to come into the room, cut open the pig's belly and take out the pearl. The pearl we took out is called the fuju. It will be the treasure of the villagers. With it, the village will have good weather and good harvest for the whole year. Your sister is this year's clam girl. She is extremely noble and can enjoy the best food in the village, but at the same time she has to bear the heavy responsibility of giving birth to the lucky pearl. My mother rubbed the bloody blade against my face repeatedly and said in a cold tone, "Before your sister takes responsibility, I hope she can continue to be happy, so you have to learn to shut up." After that, my sister continued to be the same as usual. She lay in bed every day touching the yellow eel and eating the precious delicacy. But I had 2 broken fingers, a missing leg and a broken tongue. My physical disability turned me into a dull walking corpse, but my sister was in a good mood. The meals changed from 3 meals a day to lard mixed with pearl powder every hour. My mother was filled with joy. "Amelia is great. Her waist has become so big that I can't hold it with my hands. Her belly has also grown bigger. She looks like she is 9 months pregnant. She really makes me proud." My sister, who was still concentrating on eating, suddenly stopped. After a few seconds, she took another big swallow of lard and held it in her mouth, leading the eel into her mouth to eat. My mother looked at her lovingly with a smile. "My daughter is really good at playing, my dear. If you are hungry, you must tell me in time." My sister sucked on the eel's tail and mumbled incoherently, "I want to rest. All of you get out." An hour later, my mother and I carried a large bowl of solidified lard rice into her room. My sister is still hiding under the quilt. "My dear girl, come out quickly and eat some food to replenish your nutrition." My mother patted the quilt gently. My sister didn't come out. My mother winked at me. I immediately lifted the quilt. I saw the long black-faced eels in the quilt lying in a human shape, piled up layer by layer. Where's my sister? I'm a little panicked. Ever since she became ill, she has been eating, drinking, defecating and urinating in bed. She never left her bed. But now she is gone. I quickly looked around the room. It was small and empty, with nothing in it except a bed and a chamber pot. She ran away. My mother was the first to react. She pushed the eel on the bed away, her face ferocious and terrified. "She is pregnant with the village's blessing bead. We must not let her escape." I was confused for a moment. Every time my mom and I leave, we lock my sister's door. My sister must not be able to leave through the entrance. So how could she disappear out of thin air? "It must be because you are such a talkative bitch." My mother kicked me hard, her face twisted, and she yelled at me, "If you can't find your sister, I'll let the eel bite you, turn you into a clam girl, and grow a lucky pearl in your belly." I was kicked to the ground, shaking all over. Clam girl. A clam girl with a huge belly, lying on the bed with a sticky and disgusting eel, and finally being gutted. I don't want it. At this moment, I noticed that there was a dark hole under the low bed. My sister must have escaped from this hole. My sister's escape caused panic and anger among the whole village. "I asked you to take good care of her, but you took care of her and she ran away?" The village chief was furious. He clenched his fist and hit my mother's face hard. "Last year, Evelyn's pearls were very bad, resulting in our village not having a good harvest for a whole year. Now Amelia has run away again. Do you want to destroy our village?" The village chief was so strong that he knocked out my mother's teeth. "Village chief, there is a record in the clan history that if the first clam girl ran away, the second clam girl bitten by the eel could give birth to the lucky pearl." Blood was flowing from my mother's mouth. But she ignored the pain and knelt at the village chief's feet, her face full of nervousness and fear. "Amelia ran away and there is Ella. Ella has a big butt, she can definitely take on the role of a clam girl." The village chief kicked my mother hard in the chest and shouted angrily, "Go find Amelia." Then he turned his head again and stared at me with sinister eyes. I was so scared that I stepped back. The village chief shouted to the villagers behind him, "Go catch a nest of big yellow eels." The next moment he grabbed me fiercely and sneered, "You are the current clam girl." "Village chief, please let me go." I screamed for help at the top of my lungs. But my tongue had been cut off, so my voice was unclear. "Shut up." The village chief raised his rough palm and slapped me hard on the face a few times, angrily scolding, "It is your blessing to let you become a clam girl, and you dare to struggle. You really don't know how to appreciate your blessings." I struggled desperately. The village chief called for people to come and tie my limbs tightly with ropes. The sun was shining brightly now. I twisted my body and tried to get up, but the village chief and his men stepped on me tightly. The village chief yelled impatiently, "Why haven't the eels arrived yet?" The word eel made my whole body spasm. I screamed wildly, but the village chief kicked me hard. Soon, Aunt Wong from next door came over carrying a wooden bucket as high as her calf. "Here they come, the eels are coming." I am completely disheartened. "Ayla, becoming a clam girl is a good thing, you should be happy about it." Aunt Wang smiled and poured the whole bucket of yellow eel on me. From now on, you will have endless delicious lard to eat every day. To be honest, I envy you so much. It was noon and the sun was very hot. I lay on the dry soil and the eel fell on me. The long, sticky stench of the animal made me lose all desire to live. A whimpering, death-seeking whine came from my throat. At this moment, a girl came closer from afar. The girl had slender limbs, but her belly was huge like a big pot in front of her. I widened my eyes. Evelyn? This girl, she is Evelyn. Evelyn, the clam girl who was disemboweled and had her pearls taken out last year and died tragically. Shit, she's really Evelyn? Someone in the crowd exclaimed in surprise. Didn't Evelyn die? How come she's resurrected now? Yes. I remember clearly that I cut open her belly with a knife myself. A burly butcher touched his head and said in a hoarse voice, she was in so much pain at the time that she begged me to kill her quickly, but I was afraid that the blade was too sharp and would cut Fuju, so I moved very slowly. She bled all over the floor. I remember it clearly. Not long after my daughter died, I threw her into the lake. Logically, there should be nothing left of her. Why does she look so full of life now? Evelyn's mother took a few steps forward, staring at Evelyn carefully, and muttered a few words. She not only looks fine, but she's also more than 10 centimeters taller than before. For a moment, everyone's attention was focused on Evelyn. They asked one after another, "Village Chief, Evelyn's arrival is strange, how should we deal with her?" The village chief lowered his head and thought for a while. The resurrection of the clam girl, this matter, seems to be recorded in the clan history. But I don't remember how it was recorded. Come on, go to the ancestral temple and get the clan history and look it over. I struggled and got up from the ground. Evelyn walked slowly and stiffly like a clockwork wooden man. Her face was also very strange. Her eyeballs were not black and white but white like the eyes of a dead fish. The village chief stared at her. Evelyn, how did you come back to life? Evelyn walked towards me step by step without making a sound. Then she stopped beside me motionless. The village chief frowned. He is the head of our Bung village and has absolute authority, and everyone obeys him. But now, Evelyn didn't respond to him, which was undoubtedly a provocation. Looks like you deserve a beating. There was a hint of ruthlessness in the village chief's eyes. Just as the slap was about to fall on Evelyn, the village accountant ran over quickly and said in horror, "Village chief, you must not hit the clam girl." He shouted, "It's written in the clan history that the resurrection of the clam girl is a good omen from heaven, and we must respect and admire her." The village chief stopped immediately. He took the clan history from the accountant, looked at it carefully for a while, and then knelt down to Evelyn. Long live the clam girl. With the village chief taking the lead, all the other villagers around knelt down towards Evelyn. But Evelyn still didn't speak. She had no expression on her face but just kept moving closer to me. The village chief raised his head and shouted at me, "Why don't you kneel down to the clam girl right now?" I don't need to kneel. I suppressed my fear and uttered incoherent words from my tongueless mouth. Evelyn and I were best friends before she became a clam girl, so we have a connection. She just told me that she is the only clam girl in the village, so I don't need to become one. The village chief was full of suspicion, but when he looked at Evelyn, he said very respectfully, "Clam girl, is what she said really what you wanted to say?" Evelyn remained silent, and her expression did not change. She's lying. Evelyn's mother walked out of the crowd and hummed, "My daughter Evelyn is my daughter. No one knows a daughter better than her mother. My feelings are very similar to hers. I think what the clam girl meant is that she wants you, Ella, to become a clam girl and give birth to lucky beads for the village." Well said. The village chief turned around and said to several strong villagers, "Get more eels and pour them on Ella." I screamed, "No." When several villagers were about to arrest me, Evelyn suddenly became angry and waved them away. For a moment everyone paused. I gritted my teeth and shouted angrily, "See. I said that I have a telepathic connection with the clam girl. Now the clam girl is very unhappy and she doesn't want you to touch me." The villagers were completely convinced. And I have become the spokesperson for Evelyn, the clam girl. Soon my mother came back looking as pale as death. She knelt before the village chief and cried bitterly, "Village chief, please forgive me. I have searched everywhere near the village, but I can't find any trace of Amelia." Without waiting for the village chief to speak, my mother looked around for me again and said impatiently, "Village chief, please don't punish me. Ella can definitely become a clam girl." Bang. The village chief raised his hand again and slammed it down on my mother's face. "How could you choose Ella as the clam girl, you idiot?" My mother was stunned. "Village Village chief, you hit me. Is there anyone with a bigger butt than Ella? Or do you have a better choice in mind? We don't need to look for clam girls anymore. Evelyn, who was standing in front of me, and said respectfully, the resurrection of the clam girl last year is a rare auspicious sign. The belly of this clam girl will give birth to a bigger blessing bead. From now on, all the lard and pearl powder in the village must be provided to Evelyn the clam girl. Evelyn the clam girl? Didn't she die last year? My mother turned her head and looked carefully at Evelyn's appearance, her face turned pale with fear. She sat down on the ground. The dead are resurrected. Isn't this a disaster? Shut up. The village chief kicked my mother in the face and said, if you dare to disrespect the clam girl again, I will kill you. Since then, Evelyn the clam girl has been kept in my home. All the delicious food and drinks at home are eaten by her. But Evelyn didn't like the soft big bed, she liked the muddy and smelly mud puddle. And there must be lots of eels in the pit. And my first priority is to take good care of Evelyn. Thanks to her, I was able to put down the heavy work of collecting clams and killing eels every day and accompany her every day. After the heavy rain that day, I took Evelyn and a large piece of rotten pork to the mountain behind the village. Eels like to eat carrion, and after a heavy rain they will come out of the mud to get some air. This was Evelyn's happiest moment. She played in the puddle, and I took a still warm sweet potato from my arms and walked toward an ancient tree that must have been thousands of years old. It is so thick that even 5 or 6 people cannot hold it. It is also very large and dense. Therefore, no one noticed that the bottom of the old tree was actually hollow. My sister Amelia hid here. Don't hide, I know you are here. I pushed aside the rotten branches and leaves, looked down and whispered, you actually always knew the price of being a clam girl, but you were greedy, you wanted to eat the delicious lard. Mom said that day that your belly was getting bigger and soon you disappeared. The cave entrance was dark and no sound was heard. I said to myself, but I noticed the hole under the bed. It was very deep. So, you had a plan to escape, right? My sister still didn't move. You've been hiding for so long, you must be hungry? I sighed, I brought you some food, do you want to eat it? Eat. From the cave entrance, I heard my sister's familiar voice. I looked towards the source of the sound. I saw my sister lying on the ground with large leaves covering her body. She waved her hand and the leaves fell, revealing her body, which was much thinner than before. She stared at me and asked, you wouldn't poison the food and then ask my mother to capture me and make me a clam girl, would you? Won't? I took a big bite of the sweet potato in front of her, and then threw it to her. Actually, you don't have to hide. Last year's clam girl Evelyn has resurrected. Everyone in the village is counting on the lucky beads in Evelyn's belly. Humph, you're lying to me. The dead can't be resurrected. My sister grabbed the sweet potato and bit into it impatiently. But as soon as she took a bite, she spit it out. What is this? It's so disgusting. She took her palm and dug into the sweet potato in her mouth, her face full of disgust and resentment. I don't want to eat this. I frowned. Sister, before you became a clam girl, we ate sweet potatoes for every meal. My sister screamed, I don't want to eat it now. I want to eat lard and tapioca pearls. Lard and pearl powder are food that only noble clam girls can enjoy. I looked at her calmly. Sister, you are no longer a clam girl. With the food, Evelyn's belly grew bigger and bigger. Her belly skin was very thin and hard. It gives people a very strange feeling, as if a layer of plastic wrap is wrapped around an iron ball. And my belly inexplicably became a little bigger. My mother pointed at my nose and scolded me, how dare you be greedy and steal the lard and pearl powder of the clam girl. This time I didn't dodge and said openly, yes, I did cheat, but what can you do to me? What a delicious food lard is. Evelyn can't speak, I'm her mouth, I eat some lard, what's wrong? My mother was extremely angry and as usual, she raised her hand to slap me. Stop. Evelyn, who had always been silent, spoke. But the sound she made did not come from her mouth, but from the vibration frequency in her stomach. At first glance, this frequency sounded like, stop. My mother immediately knelt down, tied herself up with her own hands, and begged the clam girl not to punish her. Evelyn's stomach began to emit a frequency again. She said, I want to train the next successor. I am Evelyn's personal caregiver. What she means is that I must strictly follow and do it. So I hurriedly took the gong and drum and shouted to the village, the clam girl is going to choose a successor. Everyone come and participate. Everyone in the village ran towards my house. In previous years, the clam girl was chosen by the eels in the lake. But now, the clam girl who had been resurrected before was chosen, which made the villagers very excited. The parents were very active and enthusiastic in pushing their children out. Clam Girl, please choose my child. My child has a big butt, can work and eats a lot. In contrast, their children looked nervous and helpless. Some of the timid ones even started crying out of fear, "Mom, no. I don't want to be chosen." Stupid, if you're chosen you'll have endless delicious lard to eat. The parents didn't comfort the child at all, but kept pushing the child towards Evelyn. I stared at everyone present with a sinister look. To the mothers, being a clam girl seems to be an honor. But why don't they become clam girls themselves? Clam girls, please choose my daughter Ella. My mother also became very active. She spoke louder than anyone else present. Ella has the biggest butt among her peers. She is really the best choice for the village, Clam Girl. Evelyn turned around quietly and pointed her finger straight at me. Very good. My mother's face flushed with excitement. She patted my shoulder vigorously and said, "Ella, starting next year, I will definitely take good care of you." I smiled. "Mom, look carefully, the Clam Girl chose you, not me." My mother was stunned. After a few seconds, she turned her head stiffly. Evelyn's index finger seemed to be broken, and it was pointed at my mother. "Clam Girl, how could you choose me?" My mother was so frightened that her face turned pale. She dodged in panic. "I'm old, I can't produce good beads at all." But no matter how she dodged, Evelyn's finger was always pointing at her accurately. I smiled and said, "Mom, your butt is the biggest in the village. You are the most suitable person to be the Clam Girl next year." My mother burst into tears. "No, I'm too old." "Shut up." The village chief was furious. He kicked my mother again and said, "You must obey the words of the Clam Girl. Next year this Clam Girl must be you." "No." My mother screamed, fell to the ground with her head back and fainted completely. 21. When everyone unanimously decided to choose my mother as the second year's Clam Girl, my sister came back. She had lost a lot of weight due to hunger and looked very weak. Her hair hung sparsely on her body, making her look like a savage. But she was still able to make a sound. She said, "I am the Clam Girl. I am the first Clam Girl this year. The successor next year can only be me. Yes. The Clam Girl can only be my daughter Amelia." My mother suddenly woke up. She was like a person about to drown in the water, grabbing my sister as the only straw, and couldn't wait to agree. "The village has been serving Amelia as a clam maiden before. I absolutely can't take her position as a clam maiden." My sister's expression eased a little and she said hurriedly, "Now hurry up and make me some lard and pearl powder. I'm hungry and I want to eat lots and lots of lard and pearl powder." "Sister, you can't become a Clam Girl just because you want to." I smiled and said, "It is clearly recorded in the clan history that the resurrection of the Clam Girl is a good omen from heaven, and we must respect and admire her. Now, the resurrected Clam Girl is Evelyn. Evelyn has clearly instructed that the next Clam Girl can only be my mother, and no one else can replace her." "Good." The village chief nodded and said, "Everything depends on what Evelyn, the Clam Girl, says." "No." My sister suddenly yelled and took out a kitchen knife from somewhere. She raised the kitchen knife high and rushed towards my mother, shouting, "If she dies, I can become a Clam Girl now, right?" I looked at my sister expressionlessly. She had grown up with me. In the past, she was so kind and would rush to do anything that required hardship. But now, in order to eat some lard and pearl powder, she was willing to kill her mother. Is the temptation of delicious food to her really that strong? Bang! With a loud bang, my mother grabbed my sister's hand and turned the kitchen knife upside down. My sister's stomach was cut open. Before she died, she could not help murmuring with desire from her dry mouth, I want lard pearls, powder." My sister's belly was full of fat, butter, and tiny pearls of fat. The village chief saw this and kicked my mother hard again. "Stupid, your daughter was not bitten by the eel at all." My mother hurriedly explained, "Village chief, her belly is full of pearls." The village chief roared, "A woman bitten by an eel will only have one pearl in her stomach, and that pearl is a blessing, but your daughter's stomach is full of worthless little pearls." When my mother understood, she also got angry and kicked my sister's body fiercely. "How dare you lie to me, you idiot! I really shouldn't have killed you with one blow, I should have cut you into pieces." 22. Yes. My sister lied to her. The one who was actually bitten by the eel was me. My sister and I were catching eels in the lake when an eel bit my finger. My finger was covered in blood and it hurt so much. I wanted to tell my mother. But my sister held my hand and told me mysteriously, "Didn't you notice that the first woman bitten by a yellow eel would die on New Year's Eve?" My sister's warning frightened me. But I couldn't cover the blood on my body. Just when I didn't know what to do, my sister lifted her skirt and exposed her bloody legs. She said that she was actually bitten by an eel. So, she naturally replaced me and became the Clam Girl. But in fact, I know that she was not bitten by the yellow eel, because I saw that my sister secretly smeared my blood on her body. I also know that my sister replaced me not because she really wanted to do good for me, but because she was greedy. She wanted the delicious and greasy lard and pearl powder. She thought that after tasting lard for a while, she would be able to stop in time, hide in a tree hole, and escape. However, man proposes, God disposes. In the end, she still couldn't avoid